hackathon provided by Google Developer Student Club at Western Michigan University. We have two amazing speakers with us today. I'm going to introduce them very soon. Let's go ahead and I will introduce a little bit about ourselves in this session. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So our mission is to empower our community with the resources, education, and experience they need to create imaginative technology called solutions to the problems that the society is facing. Right now, we are working with KLF, which is a local community here, organization. They help the loaves and fishes over here. So our core values is to build a thriving community, which is made by you. So your opinion is valid in this community, and we listen to you. We try to provide as much as to the community. We also try to bridge the gap between theory and practice by providing different workshops. And also we encourage sustainability, sustainable progress by providing you the opportunity to access industry leaders, to talk with them, to have fireside chat like the one that we're having today. Welcome to Chit-Chat with HackMIT Winners. We have two HackMIT, we have a team who won an award in HackMIT. Before we start the event, I want you to keep in mind about a few housekeeping rules. One is to be respectful to everyone, and feel free to use the Q&A tab to ask questions. One more thing before we start, this session is being recorded, which will be posted in our YouTube, so just so you know. So we have two panelists with us today. We have Mohammad Ali Abed, and we have Anish today. So I'm going to give the floor to Mohammad to introduce himself.
Hi, sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Mohammad. My pronouns are the he series. I'm currently a senior at UC Berkeley studying applied math, econ, and CS. Gotta love those numbers. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Mohammad. Anish, would you like to give us a little introduction of yourself?
Sure. So, hey, everyone. My name's Anish. I am also a CS major. And I have a really big passion into creating things, and I'm also very excited to be here.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we're going to jump into the event here. So the first question that I have for you guys is a general question. How was your experience at HackMIT?
Well, I'll go first. So I think it was great. Being able to really meet so many people from so many different walks of life, from nerding out over a game like Hearthstone in the MIT dorm to, talking to a college dropout, working on a startup, it was really great to hear so many unique stories.
Yeah, I would have to attest to the same statement. It was really interesting. I think the best part was being able to chat with students because they're essentially in the same age range as us, but everyone's backgrounds are so different. It was really, I would say in that sense, it was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I'm going to go to the next question. So what are some of the strategies that you followed as a team member that led you to this amazing win? Mohammad, would you want to start on that?
Yeah, I think the best strategy that we had was at the start, we kind of divided ourselves up by what skills we have. And after we knew what skill each person has, we kind of then formed sub-teams within our team. We had two, front and back end, like the generic team, but the full stack part of it came through a lot of just communication. I would just say it was communication and organization.
And then also adding on to that, we also really, our main focus was not so much as winning as, creating an impact. Our goal was to really work on a solution that was very personal to our team. And luckily, it seems that sponsor thought it was a noteworthy issue as well. So I'd say really pick an issue that is impactful to you and try your best to solve it.
Awesome. So a follow-up question on that. How many people were in this team?
4 in total.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think it's very important to divide your teams into by specific skills so that you can tackle from multiple different areas. So yeah, thank you very much for that answer. All right, I'm gonna go to the next question. So when you were coming up with a solution, were there any conflicts in opinions amongst your team? And if there was, How did you handle it?
Anish, you want to take that first?
Sure. So one of the issues that I remember of is that during our presentations, we were actually having during our first, I believe, first sponsor, we ended up talking over one another, and some of us wanted parts that others, thought they wanted instead. So instead of really, pursuing each other's own interests, what we did is we said, okay, let's step back. Let's decide who kind of knows what material the best. So we laid it out, we planned it, we said, okay, this the best, this the best. And then instead of really, focusing on ourselves and what we wanted, we focused on the team and what was best for the team. So I think you should always, if you ever get into a conflict, take a step back and focus on what's really helpful for the team.
I think I agree with that, by the way, but I think another major conflict that we had was that a certain team member was very, very optimistic and a little bit too much optimistic because none of us had the skills that they wanted to achieve. And there's nothing wrong with not having skills. That's the point of a hackathon, right? To learn. But it was just really difficult with 24 hours to try to do something that takes a lot longer than 24 hours to do. And that kind of set us back at one point. But we were able to recover from it by kind of just working around it. But I would say being overly optimistic and kind of shooting out skills that you don't really have is just as bad.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. I myself had lots of problems in team projects where someone would get very, very much optimistic and try to achieve everything, when in reality we don't have that much time. So yeah, thank you, Mohammed and Anish, for that answer. I do see a question from Elaine. So did you form your team before the event, or was it during the event? So did you go there as a team, or did you went there individually and then form your team there?
We formed our team like a week before. They had a Slack channel for team formations. I think they do that they've done that at every hackathon that I've attended. They kind of give you the option to meet random people a week or two in advance and then go in as a team with them. So that's what we did.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. So what are some things that you'd avoid if given the chance to do all over it again? So let's do both. What are some of the things you would avoid, and what are some of the things that you'd add if you redid everything?
So I would say for this kind of touches upon both. I'd say one of the things that I would want to add is to fully plan out the stack and really make sure that the back end is easily synchronizable with the front end, because we had a lot of issues with connecting API points and really transferring the data that we were able to collect into like a seamless way into making it to the front end. I'd say because you always have to remember that you're on a time crunch. So even if something's like low code intensive and it's really like you're able to. It just matters that you're able to get it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Mohammad, would you want to add something to that?
I would agree with the absolute same thing. That's exactly what I was going to say, yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so the next question would be, so we have a lot of first-timers who are trying to attend this hackathon of ours. So what tips do you have for first-timers who have never attended a hackathon before and they're just starting off?
Okay, I'll start off with this. My first hackathon that I ever did was an absolute mess. And that's because the teammates that I had, it was their first hackathon too. And it's pretty apparent that this is really common for first time hackathon goers. I guess that's what they're called. People lie about the skills they have, or they try to say that they know more than they do. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing everything, right? Like I can't code in every language, and I definitely can't read the syntax or understand it of every language. And that's absolutely fine. You shouldn't put yourself in a position where you're trying to offer more to others if you aren't able to meet that quota that you set yourself, right? Like if I'm going to say, I'll do backend and I'm building a machine learning model, but then an hour before our submission is due, you say, how does machine learning work, then you've kind of just screwed over everyone in your team. I would say the two things that I want you to take away from this is have organization skills. That's really important because you only have 24 hours, and don't oversell yourself. You will find a team no matter what, because there's hundreds of people doing this hackathon. You'll find someone who's in the same range as you, or maybe you'll find someone who knows more than you, is willing to mentor you as a teammate, but never oversell yourself.
Yeah, I think a normal mentality with that we go into interviews is that we kind of oversell ourselves, and I think that tendency tends to be there when we're forming teams. So yeah, awesome. Thank you, Mohammed. Anish, would you want to add something to that question?
Sure, yeah. Completely agree with everything that Mohammad said. He hit it right on the nail. I'd also add from my first hackathon experience is that try not to look at what everyone else is doing. Because for me, I kind of felt a lot more inferior when I started looking at people who brought like a whole like robotic setup, and it was like just moving on its own and everything. I was like, how would I be able to top that? I'd say just go out and create something, because more times than not, everyone's kind of feeling the same thing as you. So there's not going to be any judgment. Just, go and like make whatever you can. And I'd also very heavily emphasize, try to make a project. Attending the workshops is great, but putting it into action and actually, making those skills applicable, I think that's also very important, because that's how I learn the best, and maybe you do too.
Yeah, of course. I honestly think that it's just not about hackathon. It's just any part of life. When you look at people around you and you kind of compare yourself with them, you always feel inferior, and then you kind of lose motivation and not work at all. So yeah, thank you very much, Anish, for that answer. So I have a question from Eugene from the Q&A tab. Because of the time crunch, did you focus on producing a complete solution or the presentation of the solution?
I actually don't think. I feel like the majority of the time that we were doing our work, I wasn't even thinking of the presentation aspect of it. I was more so thinking of completing it, just because, well, I'll give an example. Anish and I only slept an hour the day of the hackathon, and that's because we were up the entire night trying to do our parts. And sorry, I just saw Eugene saying I really like that answer. Of course. But we were up like the entire night trying to make everything work. So I feel like I never even thought of the presentation part of it until like maybe an hour before it was due, because after we submitted it, they let us, as long as you submitted something, you were able to like edit your presentation if you made like a slideshow or something. And that's typically like, I don't remember the break, but it was like a good like 40 minutes, I would say, which is enough time to get the presentation part done. I mean, if it's like on Google Docs, right? The template's there, just put in some words.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Anish, would you want to add something on that?
Once again, I think I completely agree with everything you said. I was only up for an hour, so really it was just getting it done.
All right, awesome, thank you. All right, we have another question from Jefferson Lee. How did you manage your time? It seems like it is challenging to come up with a solution in like 24 hours.
Okay, I guess I can start. The time management part of it is really difficult. 24 hours sounds like so much time, but then when you're doing it, I swear it goes by faster. Like, we started coding and then we went to go get coffee on a coffee break, and when we came back, like it felt like I had wasted a whole hour, even though it was just 10 minutes into the building right next door. I guess managing time, how I've done it in other hackathons, is I like to give myself a little schedule, kind of go based off of that. But how we did it for this one was more so like pick a problem to tackle and then do it, and then kind of reconvene with one another, see how it's going, and then kind of go back to doing the same thing over and over. So in all reality, I don't think I would really consider that time management, which is probably why we stayed up the entire night doing this. But yeah, I would say just the schedule is probably the best way to do it.
Awesome, thank you. Anish, would you add something to that?
Yeah, so regarding time management, I also think this is linking back to one of Mohammed's points. I would say it's very important to have communication, because if you're expecting like a deadline to be hit and to be able to integrate something to actually test it, and if your teammate, maybe something happened and they're on backlog, you don't want to have a situation where you just have nothing to do and then you guys are like 1 hour before the submission deadline and everything's not working. So just make sure to like keep each other informed about how it's going.
Gotcha. I do have one follow-up question on that. So let's say a hypothetical situation, you're in a team, everyone's working fine, and all of a sudden towards the end, someone says, oh, I can't do my part. How do you tackle that kind of situation as a team?
Honestly, in such a short amount of time, you just kind of have to mitigate the issue. You know, like if it's something you can do without, definitely do without it. If it's something you can explain and have a very good visual representation of, then you could still present it as long as you can explain it. One of our teammates did that. They explained that we didn't use one of the sponsors. I think it was their machine learning model. I don't remember, but explained how if we were given more time, we would be able to use it. And that was pretty good in that sense. It wasn't for IBM, so obviously we didn't win for that one. But I would say just get rid of it if you can. If it's something that's like super beneficial, then don't wait till the last second to do it. And if you know your teammate's going to wait until the last second to do it, you probably should find another team.
Gotcha. Thank you. Anish, would you want to add something?
Yeah, no, exactly that. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. All right. We have another question from Eugene. What is the most challenging aspect about collaborating with someone for the first time? Anish, would you want to take that one first?
Sure. I'd say kind of like understanding their personality and how, you know, they work with other people. That's probably the most challenging thing, because if you say something in a way that they might interpret differently, it might lead to a little bit of friction. So, you know, kind of really understanding one another and being able to know what each other means. I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah,
Awesome,
I would definitely agree with the same thing. I think I got really lucky having Anish as a teammate because we get along very, very well. So it really helped out. But in the past, when I've worked with people that I never knew, this is actually really helpful for like job interviews too, because they make you interview with people that you've never met. But like it's kind of just to like, I would say take some time to vet out how they work, and then you can figure out how you two can work together.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mohammad. Thank you, Anish, for that amazing answer. So we have another question from Eugene. Do you guys like virtual hackathons or in-person hackathons more? And why?
I would 110% say in person. Virtually, you know, it's really kind of hard to like actually work with someone. There's just so much more difficulty, but in person it's really seamless, and being able to talk with everyone, and, you know, just being able to experience everyone's stories and meet people, I think that's really, really cool. So yeah, in person, hands down for me.
Yeah.
How about you, Mohammad?
In person. I really like talking to people. I feel like I spend so much of my time just talking to people, but it's so much more fun in person. But it also depends. Like, for example, HackMIT was towards the beginning of the semester when I had all the energy in the world. So obviously in person, but like if the same opportunity were to come up, say 3 weeks before finals, I would be so dead. I would want to do it online. So I guess both, but the preference of in person if the circumstances permit.
Gotcha. Thank you. We have another question from Elaine. Hackathons usually have prize categories for sponsors tools, for example, Google platform. Would you advise that attendees try to make use of all the sponsors tools or just focus on one?
I would heavily recommend don't focus on everything, because you have to keep in mind that it's 24 hours. And by focusing on everything, you're going to have to learn a lot of new tools. So then you don't want to just barely touch on anything and just have like a shallow explanation for each sponsor. For sure, go for like as many prizes as you can. But when picking the tools to focus on, make sure that they're something you might already know, or that they're very correlated to each other, so it's kind of easy to integrate it.
Yeah, I would have to attest to the same exact thing. Don't try to, I mean, if you obviously have the skills, I'm not telling you to stop yourselves, right? But you have, I mean, if it's a hackathon that's more than 24 hours and you're able to, try to fit it in. But it's really difficult to try to put everything in together, like all the sponsors, because then at one point you're just going to have to like stop and realize that that's going to be really difficult, especially because for each you're going to have to tinker some things around, so it can make it difficult for your teammates. I would also take into account other people on your team. Yeah, I would just take that into consideration heavily.
Awesome. All right, thank you. So another question, could you explain more about the project that you worked on during the HackMIT?
Anish, go for it. It was your idea. So you're the star of the show now.
Okay, so I'll try giving the pitch that I gave. Okay, I'd like you all to look left to right. Do you guys notice anything odd? Maybe any floating type of objects in your vision? Any black lines, any translucent lines? Well, if you do, those are called floaters, and they're experienced by around 70% of the population. For you and for some others, it might be so easy to ignore it because it's translucent and it's hard to see. But for me, for Mo, and for a few others, it becomes a really imminent problem where it's all we can see. We tend to, just not be able to focus at all. It's very distracting. It's very psychologically irritating when you're trying to work on something and that's the only thing that's blocking your vision. I can recall that I actually went to my room for a day and just locked it and turned off the lights just so I can just focus on not seeing those floaters. So what our product does is it kind of mitigates that. Since everyone has a different level of, or everyone has different eyes, what we do is we have a gradient test to kind of see, hey, this is where this is the luminosity that you're going to experience that kind of causes these symptoms. So what our product does is if you take a picture of maybe anywhere in the room, right? It can tell you that if you sit here or if you practice here, or if you do something here, this will give you the best results for you not to experience those symptoms. And our machine learning aspect that unfortunately we weren't able to implement is that we were looking to actually identify the light sources and say, hey, if the light source is above you, you can try wearing a hat. If it's in front of you, sunglasses, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anish. Mohammad, would you want to tell us a little bit about the kind of the back end part of it?
Yeah, I didn't do back end. I only did the front end part because one other person on our teammate didn't really know how to do front end, so I hopped in and did that. And then I just did the API connections between the two. But Anish is the one who did the back end. So I would say you got to answer that one again, man.
Yeah. So I might have done the back end, but Mo was super, super helpful. Say the entire night, actually helping me plan it out. So we did the back end, I'd say, together. One of the things about the back end that we actually used is for, calculating the luminosity values from a picture. We used Pillow, which is an image processing library from Python. So, if you guys want to, definitely check it out. And then for kind of the setting up the web development aspect of it, I believe we used Flask just so that it'd be easy to integrate with the Python backend. And yeah, that's what we used for the backend.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question from Eugene. Would you change anything if you could do the hackathon project again? So in the project.
I honestly can't think of anything that I would change. Maybe I don't want to answer this and put any of my teammates down. Maybe I think the only thing I would change is everyone's task within the team. The project itself I would not change because it was really unique, and I think we were the only one that submitted something like this. So props to Anish for a really, really unique project. But In terms of the project, I wouldn't change much. I guess maybe just making the code more cleaner, but they never look at your code. It's just more of like for my personal self. Like they just look at what presentation you've made, or if you want to show them your code while you're presenting. So that part of it doesn't really matter. But yeah, those are like the only two things I would change.
Awesome. Thank you, Mohammed. What about you, Anish?
Yeah, I loved working with Mo. I'd say that once again, kind of like going back to like what he said about the code being, I don't think staying up at like 5 a.m. is going to give you the best, or cleanest code. But yeah, that's just more of a personal thing than an actual thing.
Awesome. Thank you. One question from Jeff. Again, what advices would you give to non-computer science students to participate in a hackathon?
So there's definitely many ways that non-CS majors can participate. For example, designing. Like if you might have heard of Figma, you could use that to create a mock-up, and having someone who's really maybe good at presenting to like kind of translate what you made into an actual product, and kind of helping others understand the worth of what you're making. I think that's very important. So if someone doesn't have CS skills, you could always learn, but there's also other components to a hackathon.
Awesome. Thank you. Mohammed, would you want to add something?
Yeah. The whole purpose of the hackathon is to like go in with, I think the way they admit people to every hackathon is where a certain majority of the students have no coding experience or very little coding experience. And the intention is to group them or like be teams with people who have really good coding skills so you guys can all learn from one another. And I would say a lot of non-CS students who participate in hackathons generally do know how to code, but I don't know, that could just be from my experience, because at least here where I go to school, everyone knows how to code for some reason. So maybe you'll just be lucky enough to understand how to code to some extent, but I would say the only piece of advice I'd give you is just kind of find a team where you're like, don't group with 3, I don't know, say MIT students who only have like specialty in machine learning and you've never coded in your life, because then you're kind of screwed, right? Like what are you going to do that's going to help them in any way? But also don't group with people who have like no skills just like you, because then you guys will suffer for your 24 hours. You absolutely will suffer. I did that my first hackathon. I only knew like how to do front end, and I teamed up with people who only know how to do front end, and we never did our back end portion. So, I would take that into account too. I'd say just kind of find people where you're a very integral part of the group, I guess in terms of math, you're the integral domain to them. That's the best way to think about it.
Awesome. Thank you. So are you still working on the project, and would you like to continue working on it to make it a full-fledged idea?
Anish, you opened your mouth first. Go.
Okay. So yeah, I actually did pitch this idea to a few people. We actually received some interest from 1 or 2 accelerators who were interested, making this an actual thing. Yeah, so the support's been great. But I think we have to kind of have also a lot of a research background. So, having someone who's also really into biomedical research, because there's a lot of components of the eye that I personally don't know, because what our product does is it addresses the symptoms. What we'd like to do is also address the cause. So, kind of having that research and being able to actually create a product for that, I think we have ways to go.
It's amazing, Anish. Anything would you like to add on that, Mohammad?
Honestly, the same. I think we went into this very, very, I feel like Anish and I are very math-oriented people. And we went into this with the mindset of a mathematician, but the eyes, unfortunately, are not a concept of mathematics. They are a concept within the realm of bio and medicine. And so I think someone with that expertise, even if they don't know how to code, it's really, really important that someone who really understands what this is, because what if we just made something and like someone already has a better solution for it or something, right? Like you need really good research within the field, or at least someone who understands the field before you could kind of, at least if we were to make this like a real thing, I would say we would need a lot of research and a lot of help from bio students. As much as I hate biology, it's really, really helpful. So in this sense.
Awesome. So one follow-up question. So are all of your team members trying to make this a full-fledged idea, a full-fledged application?
One of my teammates, I haven't heard from her since the hackathon, and the only time we communicate is if she like likes my story on Instagram. The other teammate, I haven't heard from him in like a month, but he'll just randomly hit me up about anything but CS related things. So I guess the only one that like I would have any or who has any interest in making this a real thing is Anish.
Regarding kind of making this a real thing, I'd also say, having, Mo and kind of like being able to talk through him and, kind of bouncing ideas off him. I'd say we both also like, although there's interest, once again, I'd say it's really, the research that we need, and having that component is very necessary. So for us, I think this is something that we are interested in seeing a solution for, but I don't think that right now we're the people who would be able to best do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Anish and Mohammad. I think that was the last question that we got for today's session. So yeah, again, thank you very much, guys. I'm pretty sure we all learned a lot personally, I learned a lot from you guys today. So thank you very much for being here today. It was really amazing to have you guys on board with us. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and end this session. We do have another session for people who want to attend. It's at 6 p.m. Where we talk about security vulnerabilities by a Google developer expert. So yeah, see you guys on that one. Thank you again, Mohammad and Anish, for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.